Hello, I'm Michael Tubbs, the CEO of the Community Action Partnership. It's good to talk to you today. Even though I'm not there in person, I'd like to share some things with you that I think are very important for our program to understand, especially in the children's services area. You know, the company's in very good shape and we have wonderful employees who do a great job every day. And we want to talk today about some things in the future that I think are very important, and it's not the kind of things we'd like to communicate in an email or a message going out on our computer. So today I want to share with you some things that the organization has been working on that I think would be very important to all of us who work for the company. And Kim Dodd's going to be joining me here in this conversation. Well, Kim, it's good to talk to you again, and I know the organization is always looking and thinking out in the future. It's one of the things that I expect of the leaderships of the organization. If you're in a leadership role, you know, someone's got to be thinking about where are we going to be a year from now, 2 years from now. And the winds swirl against our programs, from funding issues to challenges on performance standards and things like that. And certainly as you interact with our Region 4 folks in Atlanta, and then also the Office of Head Start, you pick up things on your radar, and we expect that you would help translate those within our own program. And our program, obviously, we've seen a lot of growth over the last several years, from the original 12-county grant to adding the Madison Limestone grant and then taking on the Lauderdale grant. So we now have the better part of, 2,710 kids in classrooms every day. We have partnerships in lots of different locations. And no program stays static. We know that. So as you think about the program and the whole program, some of the things that affect us and look at what I call our static budgets, if you want to make changes within that, it always has to go through the region office and the Office of Head Start. That's just kind of the protocol, right? Right. And we've submitted most recently the 12 county Head Start grant, and the Policy Council has signed off on that. But as you've met with Region Office and Office of Head Start people, they've kind of challenged you to look at our program and look at the quality issues within the program and consider making some changes that may be approved. We're not sure, but you got a plan for that. And so looking toward the next school year, you and a team of folks here in the leadership role at the Head Start program have looked at all of our grants really, and but specifically the 12 county grant, to go ahead and think now about the school year. And don't wait till the school year. If we're going to do some things, let's get it in the planning. And that planning process would go to Atlanta, and then from Atlanta it would go to the Office of Head Start in Washington. And if approved, we would try to implement those changes during the summer so that we would start the school year with those changes in force. One of the most significant things I've seen in the last couple of years is the huge introduction and infusion of money from the state of Alabama into the education of children at the early age. Yeah. The pre-K classrooms really in North Alabama have just flourished. And so this year we've seen an erosion of a significant number of staff in that area. We know there's a lot of pre-K programs that are being written for right here in North Alabama that the school systems are loading up, right? Right. One of the results of that, it pulls a lot of the 4-year-old eligible children out of our program. We already know that, right? Right.
And it's not because we have less quality classrooms, less quality preschool or pre-K classrooms. It's simply that they can go to the school system, make more money, and pay less for their insurance.
Parents also have understood that if the classrooms are in that school, you know, XYZ school, and their child can get in that pre-K, they would almost choose that pre-K. If they can choose, right?
Well, because they have other children going to that school.
Yeah, and they mainstream them right on up in the school. Right. And certainly I think you've gone out into communities and I hate to say beg, but you've done everything but beg to say, you know, can we partner here? And we've been successful in so many places, Kim, partnering with local educators and where they highly value the work of our children's services people, and they see the quality that we deliver. Our class scores have come in, and the class scores just announced today that we kind of met the threshold. We didn't knock it out, but we did well, and it met our expectations, but we were very pleased that we didn't fall below those thresholds, because that puts you in great jeopardy. Right. We know that.
For this year, had our scores, our class scores that we just had they come in on this class median for the nation, we would have been above the 10%.
10%. Say more about the 10%, because the 10%'s got a big flag on it.
That's when they close your program and you have to recompete for your grants.
Yeah. And so as you've talked to Office of Head Start Region 4 folks, they look at our cost per child, and they think, and they've said, they don't think it, they've said, really, our cost per child is very low in comparison to other programs. Is that a fair statement?
Well, I'll tell you the exact words they used, and that was our program specialist from Atlanta said, Kim, y'all are so poor, and you've been so poor for so long, you didn't even know how poor you were.
Meaning that allocated cost per child is just extremely low. They then have encouraged us to consider putting more money per child in the program.
They've said, Kim, you cannot, you don't
Continue
have
to do
enough
this.
room in your budget, you can't continue. But the other thing is that we've been in sort of prepping for is there's performance standards coming out. And performance standards are basically the law and for the United States, a federal law. So these, we've gone through with fine-tooth combs the proposed standards. And we see some significant quality increasers,
So,
if you will.
so challenges that are coming that we already know, probably in the next program year, and that we'll
That's a
see,
good-
that if we don't plan now, again, it's too late. You can't catch up to that once those hit. They're targeting really summer, which again, if you're not ready by August, you're in deep trouble. So
It's one of those things that we can wait and have it done to us, or
But that's not what good programs do,
no,
right.
or we can try to steer, guide, lead the way on our terms instead of their terms.
the difficult part of it is either you get more money in your grant, which isn't going to happen, or you find money within the grant by reducing the number of slots and the number of classrooms. The facts of it is that's a little bit of a moving target because you have to look at what I'd call just plain facts. In other words, as you and I have talked, it's what decisions do you make and how do you make those? You have to look at absolute data that comes to us, which, you know, we're data rich. We're a program that, just like every other program, has to see it that way. And the difficult part of it is that we can plan or not plan. And not planning puts you in the ditch. And come August, when we start back up the school year, we're liable to have 2 or 3 things headed at us that we couldn't manage then. Then all you're doing is chasing it. So what we've talked about for a couple of months now, really, and this is no small matter. This is not something that you whip out in 24 hours. For weeks and weeks and weeks, you and others have been looking. You've talked to educators, you've talked to principals, you've talked to superintendents. You've gone to the community to find, is there another way to partner? What could we do? And then you sit down with what I call the facts of the program. And as those facts became clear to us, those become how you make the decision.
Right.
So there's certainly just absolutes about this. Certainly you look at current wait list in the program. In other words, that's always a factor. And where there's a robust wait list is shouting to us. Now, PreK could still affect that. As a matter of fact, it has affected a lot of our wait list, right?
If there's a classroom that the wait list may look good now, we know, I'm kind of one of the first ones to know what grants are coming into each county. And if we see and we know that a county, for instance, let's take Marshall County. Just take
We
them.
know they're loading.
They're one of the top counties that have the most pre-K classrooms. So you know that county serves more 4-year-olds, which is why we serve a lot of 3-year-olds in Marshall County. When we know that that's coming, and maybe it hadn't been announced, that would be another factor that goes along with the data that has been analyzed by a committee.
So we know that current wait lists that are thin or non-existent would
Right.
probably be a factor in looking at a classroom, whether or not we were able to sustain that classroom.
That's right.
If we're already struggling, all right? The attendance and participation of children in the classroom, that's a factor,
It's a factor.
all right? One of the other things that you've looked at, and this is something that I think the Office of Head Start and Region Office 2 has said, is if the program continues to look like a 3-year-old program, then it's going to put strain and stress on the classroom staff. You know, and as I listen to classroom staff, I'll ask them, you know, what's the real issue? They'll say, we can't manage the classroom, and we're overwhelmed. We're strained all the time. We're dealing with behavioral issues. So one of the decisions in this, what I'll call the reduction, and let's go ahead and talk about it, is to reduce those 20s to 17. So if there's existing today 20,
Yes.
we would dial that back to 17 to put less pressure on the teacher assistant and the staff that supports that.
Yes. If it's a pre-K classroom, the pre-K grant requires that the maximum amount in a pre-K classroom, that means 4-year-olds, state funded, would be 18.
Okay.
Unless there's disabilities, they give us some waivers and stuff. All other preschool classrooms, preschool Head Starts, it would be 17.
That alone is one way. But the other way is looking again at that data and saying, can we stay in this community? And sometimes the difficult part of that is the answer is no. Then that's going to affect that one classroom in that one community, and it's going to affect the teacher assistant there. All of those factors become drivers. Not in every situation we looked at, but in many of those situations, there are commonalities to why would we not stay in that classroom or stay in that facility. And certainly maintenance is one, but certainly we'd always love to be in bricks and mortar. I know when you came to the company a couple of years ago, I said, anytime we can be in bricks and mortar, I want to be. It's just not possible, and I know that. We're probably not going to be in some communities, and that's going to be tough. It's going to be tough for parents. It's going to be tough for local people. The facts are, if we reduce, we've got to look at, again, without emotion, which classrooms are the ones that would be selected out. It's not been staff performance that's the issue here.
No.
It's all these other factors that if we reduce, which is really the pressure that we're hearing from Region Office and Office of Head Start, if we're going to do that, then we've got to find a way to find money within the existing budget that we have. The only way to do that really is reducing by the buildings that we maintain and the numbers out there in the community.
Personnel.
So we're talking about a good number of classrooms that will not be a part of our fleet.
On the positive side is we are, as you mentioned, we are writing for some pre-K grants.
Okay.
So they'll be, watch the website.
Again, we got 23
all
of those.
Summer.
We're good at it, yep.
Right. And because there'll be postings, job postings. The other thing is that we are going to be writing for anywhere from, I'd say, 8 to 11, maybe more if we see we can, but early Head Start classrooms.
If the plan's approved, then we would execute that during the summer, as soon as we were notified.
Yes.
They could approve part of the plan, right?
Yeah.
And at that point, we'd sit down and say, okay, well, how do we select back in? People need to know what's going on. And if their classroom is marked and that's in the planning, then I think the best thing to do is to communicate that honestly and straight up about it. And so, again, the planning could change. And as soon as we know that kind of thing, we'd communicate that to parents and staff again, right? And we would open that classroom back up in August. I mean, that's the kind of things we just are not sure about. Many of the staff are off for the summer anyway, so their status will not change.
No.
They're our employees, and
Yes.
their insurance is paid, and
Yes.
none of that gets lopped off. And as far as we're concerned, we look to see them in pre-service during the summer. Let's talk about some of the good things that could come from the reduction that actually may show up in a different way.
Okay.
And that is, we're trying to compete with school systems that have more money available to them to pay their staff, which means that out of that budget, we're trying to mine new monies, money that would have been allocated to buildings. We're going to say, let's allocate that to our teaching staff. So we've reduced that classroom size, and we've tried to push up on their pay scale so that they stay glued to this program and stay in our program and continue to deliver early education standards that we expect.
Yes.
All right.
But what that means is that cuts down staff sort of monitoring and coaching and
But as soon as we know that the classroom staff could be displaced, they will know it, right? And they'll have that conversation one-on-one.
yeah, classroom that this affects, or any staff that this affects, will be given a priority.
A lot of things could happen in the next couple of weeks. We make difficult decisions not in a bubble. We make them understanding that it impacts real people, it impacts communities, and it impacts families. Planning on this end should help us in our results in August, that we're not in disarray, we're not in chaos, that we're managing the program right on through, just like we would any other program here.
Right.
Well, Kim, it's been good to sit and listen to this, and certainly I know I plan to be able to go out to some of the classrooms as well. It's hard sometimes to do this, but it's harder to not communicate. I think it's wrong if we don't try to communicate on the front end as much as we possibly can, even when it's difficult things. So we'll go out, we'll talk to staff, and we'll do what we need to do, and hopefully we'll see the good results next year in the program.
Yeah, and also parents. We're going to go talk to parents. We're going to give them choices of, we have it laid out where we have classrooms that are
Good.
close to them.
Right.
As well as maybe if we know the 4-year-old pre-K classrooms that are going to be opening up
Yep.
or that are opened, we'll give them that information, as well as childcare.
Well, one of the things that I've written in absolutes is that when things are changing very fast, that you can't communicate enough fast enough. So I hope today we've been helpful, and as we get out into the classrooms, you'll have more information about how this impacts the classroom where you are and even your own self. And certainly we appreciate the great job that each of you do. This is nothing about performance of the individuals, and it's certainly not performance in the classroom. Performance in the classroom has been good. We see things coming that we've got to plan for. And to get there, we have to do things a little differently. So I appreciate Kim and the leadership team being able to think about these things 6 months and 12 months out. It's what we expect of the company. And we'll communicate this, and we'll communicate it very rapidly in the next couple of weeks. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.